Hello, my dear friends. AMD, welcome back to our channel, Mysterious Untold Books. Introduction. Have you ever wondered what separates those who rapidly master difficult skills from those who struggle for years with minimal progress? Imagine being able to learn a new language in 3 months, master and make computer science curriculum in 1 year, or become proficient enough at public speaking to reach the finals of a world championship in just 6 months. These feats might sound impossible, but they represent a powerful approach to learning that anyone can adopt. The traditional path of casual, comfortable learning often leads to mediocre results. We take classes, watch videos, use apps, and make slow progress over years, if we progress at all. But there exists an alternative approach, a strategy for acquiring knowledge and skills with extraordinary speed and effectiveness. This approach isn't magic or dependent on genius-level intelligence. Rather, it's built on principles that can be understood, practiced, and mastered by anyone willing to push beyond their comfort zone. By embracing intensity, directness, and strategic methods, you can dramatically accelerate your learning in any domain that matters to you, whether for career advancement, personal fulfillment, or transforming your capabilities. Chapter 1. Map Your Learning Journey, the Meta-Learning Blueprint. Meta-learning, learning about learning, forms the foundation of any successful ultra-learning project. Before diving into a new skill, ultra-learners invest time understanding the landscape of what they're about to learn. This process is like drawing a map before embarking on a journey through unfamiliar territory. Consider Dan Everett, a linguist who can begin speaking a new language from scratch in just 30 minutes. During a demonstration, Everett works with a speaker of an unfamiliar language, systematically eliciting words and phrases by pointing to objects, performing actions, and building patterns. Within half an hour, he's filled blackboards with nouns, verbs, and grammatical structures. What makes this possible isn't just raw talent, but his deep understanding of how languages work, his meta-learning blueprint. Everett's success comes from two powerful meta-learning tools, a rich conceptual framework of linguistic principles, and a methodical approach to language acquisition developed over decades. When he encounters a new language, he doesn't start from zero. He has a map showing likely patterns, common structures, and efficient learning paths. This allows him to make connections and progress far faster than someone without this framework. To create your own meta-learning blueprint, focus on answering 3 key questions. Why are you learning this skill? What specific knowledge and abilities will you need to master? And how will you acquire them? The why clarifies your motivation and goals. The what breaks down the subject into concepts, facts, and procedures you need to learn. The how identifies the resources, environments, and methods you'll use. A practical approach is to spend about 10% of your total expected learning time researching before starting. Interview experts in the field, examine how others have learned the subject, and benchmark against established curricula. This investment pays enormous dividends by preventing false starts and inefficient methods. Remember that meta-learning isn't just a one-time activity. Continue refining your understanding of the learning process as you progress. The real power of meta-learning emerges over time. Each project you complete adds to your general ability to learn effectively. You develop better time management, motivation strategies, and resource selection skills. Success breeds confidence, creating a virtuous cycle where each learning project becomes more ambitious and effective than the last. Chapter 2. Focus deeply. Sharpen your mental knife. Focus is the ability to direct and sustain attention on what matters most while filtering out distractions. It's the mental equivalent of a sharp knife, a tool that allows you to cut through complex material with precision and effectiveness. Without it, even the most brilliant learning strategies will fail. Mary Somerville, born into a poor Scottish family in the 18th century, exemplifies the extraordinary power of focus. Despite receiving minimal formal education and facing society's disapproval of educated women, she became one of history's most accomplished mathematicians. Her translation and expansion of Laplace's 5-volume work on celestial mechanics was so brilliant that Laplace himself commented she was the only woman in the world who understood his work. What made Somerville's achievements possible wasn't just intelligence, but her remarkable ability to focus intensely despite constant interruptions. While raising children and managing household duties, she developed techniques to maximize her limited study time. "I was always supposed to be at home," she explained, "and my friends came so far out of their way to see me, it would have been unkind not to receive them. However, I learned by habit to leave a subject and resume it again at once, like putting a mark into a book I might be reading. To develop this level of focus, you must overcome 3 common obstacles. First is procrastination, the failure to start focusing at all. Combat this by recognizing when you are procrastinating and using techniques like the 5-minute rule, committing to just 5 minutes of work, or the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of focus followed by a 5-minute break. The second challenge is sustaining focus once you begin. This requires managing 3 sources of distraction: your environment, phones, internet, noise, your task. Some activities are inherently harder to focus on than others, and your mind, negative emotions, and wandering thoughts. Create a distraction-free environment. Choose learning methods that engage your attention, and practice gently returning your focus when your mind wanders. The third focus problem involves optimizing the quality of your attention for different types of learning tasks. Research shows that arousal levels affect performance differently depending on task complexity. Simple, mechanical tasks benefit from higher arousal, like studying in a bustling coffee shop, while complex problem-solving often requires lower arousal and a quieter environment. With practice, you can dramatically improve your ability to focus. Start where you are. If you can only concentrate for a few minutes, begin there and gradually extend your duration. The mental strength you develop through focused learning will serve you not just in your current project, but in everything you do. Chapter 3. Learn by doing. The power of directness. Directness is the principle of learning being closely tied to the situation or context where you'll eventually use your skills. It's about going straight to the heart of what you want to learn rather than taking detours through indirect methods. Vatsal Jaiswal's story perfectly illustrates this principle. After graduating with an architecture degree during the worst job market since the Great Depression, Jaiswal found himself unable to land a position despite submitting hundreds of resumes. The feedback he received revealed a crucial insight. While his university education had focused on design theory, firms needed someone with practical skills in industry-specific software and technical documentation. Instead of continuing his fruitless job search, Jaiswal took a strategic approach. He found work at a print shop that handled architectural blueprints, giving him daily exposure to real-world drawings. At night, he taught himself Rivet, the complex design software used by the firms he wanted to join. Then he created a new portfolio focused on a single building design that showcased his technical proficiency. With this direct approach to learning what employers actually valued, he submitted his new portfolio to just the firms, and both immediately offered him jobs. The power of Jaiswal's approach lies in what educational psychologists call transfer, the ability to apply knowledge learned in one context to another. Despite over a century of research, education has largely failed to achieve significant transfer. Students who excel in classroom settings often struggle to apply their knowledge in real-world situations. This transfer problem explains why many college graduates with excellent grades can't perform well in professional environments. Directness solves this problem by minimizing the gap between learning and application. The most straightforward way to implement directness is to simply spend time doing the thing you want to become good at. If you want to learn a language, speak it from day one. If you want to master programming, build actual software. When direct practice isn't possible, create simulations that capture the essential cognitive elements of the real task. The principle of directness challenges our natural tendency to choose comfortable, indirect learning methods. It's easier to watch lectures about programming than to struggle through writing code. It's more pleasant to use a gamified language app than to have awkward conversations with native speakers. But these comfortable approaches often fail to develop transferable skills. By embracing the discomfort of direct learning, you ensure that your time and effort translate into real-world capabilities. Chapter 4. Target Weaknesses. The Strategic Drill Method. Drill is the practice of isolating and intensively working on specific components of a complex skill. It's about identifying the rate-limiting factors in your performance and deliberately focusing your practice on those weaknesses. Benjamin Franklin, renowned for his writing prowess, provides a masterclass in the power of strategic drills. Long before becoming a founding father, diplomat, and scientist, Franklin methodically developed his writing abilities through carefully designed exercises. After a childhood debate where his father noted his persuasive skills needed improvement, Franklin created a series of drills to enhance specific aspects of his writing. One such drill involved taking articles from the Spectator magazine, making brief notes on their content, and then attempting to reconstruct the original arguments from memory days later. I compared my Spectator with the original, discovered some of my faults, and corrected them, he wrote. To expand his vocabulary, he converted prose into words, forcing himself to find synonyms that matched in meter and rhyme. To improve his rhetorical flow, he jumbled his notes and practiced reorganizing them into logical sequences. These targeted drills allowed Franklin to isolate and improve specific components of writing that would have been difficult to develop through general practice alone. The results were remarkable. By age 16, his writing was so accomplished that he successfully published essays under a pseudonym, and his later writings would help shape the American Revolution and influence scientific thought worldwide. The power of drill comes from addressing two fundamental learning challenges. First, in complex skills, certain components often act as bottlenecks that limit overall performance. Just as a chemical reaction can only proceed as fast as its slowest step, your skill development is constrained by your weakest components. Second, when practicing a complex skill in its entirety, your cognitive resources are spread thin across many different aspects, making it difficult to improve any single component significantly. To implement effective drills in your own learning, follow the direct drill approach. Start by practicing the complete skill to identify your weaknesses. Then design drills that isolate those components for focused practice. Finally, reintegrate the improved components back into the complete skill. Effective drills take many forms. Time slicing isolates a particular moment or sequence within a larger skill, like a musician practicing a difficult passage. Cognitive component drills focus on one mental aspect of a skill while setting aside others. The copycat method involves imitating exemplary work to focus exclusively on specific techniques. The magnifying glass method involves spending disproportionate time on one component of a skill to develop it more fully. While drills require discipline and can sometimes feel mechanical, they're essential for breaking through plateaus in your learning. By systematically targeting your weaknesses rather than repeatedly practicing what you already do well, you can accelerate your progress and achieve mastery more efficiently. Chapter 5. Test to Learn. Retrieval as a learning tool. Retrieval practice, actively trying to recall information from memory rather than passively reviewing it, is one of the most powerful yet underutilized learning techniques available. It transforms testing from merely measuring knowledge into a tool for creating stronger, more durable memories. The mathematical genius Srinivasa Ramanujan provides a fascinating glimpse into the power of retrieval. Born into poverty in India, Ramanujan had limited access to formal education and mathematical resources. His primary learning tool was a book called A Synopsis of Elementary Results in Pure and Applied Mathematics, essentially a list of mathematical theorems without explanations or proofs. What might seem like a severe disadvantage became Ramanujan's secret weapon. Without solutions provided, he was forced to derive them himself, constantly retrieving and applying what he knew to solve new problems. This process of struggling to retrieve information, rather than simply reviewing it, created extraordinarily deep understanding. When Ramanujan later sent some of his mathematical discoveries to the renowned mathematician G.H. Hardy was astounded. Some formulas were so novel and brilliant that Hardy remarked, they must be true because, if they were not true, no one would have had the imagination to invent them. Modern research confirms what Ramanujan discovered through necessity. In one revealing study, students were divided into groups using different study methods, repeated reviewing, concept mapping, and retrieval practice, closing the book and recalling information. When asked to predict their performance on a later test, students believed retrieval practice would be least effective. The actual results showed the opposite. Retrieval practice led to nearly 50% better retention than the other methods. This counterintuitive finding reveals a fundamental paradox of learning. What feels effective in the moment often isn't what creates lasting knowledge. Immediately after studying, passive review produces better performance than retrieval practice. But test again days later, and retrieval practice dramatically outperforms passive review. Our intuitive judgments about learning effectiveness are often wrong because we confuse fluency, how easy something feels, with actual learning. To implement retrieval practice, use techniques like flashcards, free recall, writing down everything you remember about a topic without looking at notes, or the question book method, converting your notes into questions you'll answer later. When learning a skill rather than facts, create self-generated challenges that force you to apply what you've learned without references or guides. The most powerful aspect of retrieval practice may be that difficulty itself enhances learning. Research on desirable difficulties shows that making retrieval more challenging, by spacing practice sessions further apart or providing fewer cues, actually improves long-term retention, provided you can still successfully retrieve the information. This explains why waiting until you feel ready to test yourself is counterproductive. The struggle itself strengthens memory. Chapter 6. Embrace feedback. Don't dawdle the punches. Feedback, information about how well you are performing, is essential for effective learning, yet many people avoid it because it can be uncomfortable to confront their shortcomings. Embracing feedback, especially when it highlights weaknesses, accelerates learning by providing clear direction for improvement. Chris Rock, one of the world's most successful comedians, demonstrates the power of actively seeking intense feedback. Despite his fame and sold-out arena shows, Rock regularly appears unannounced at small comedy clubs like the Comedy Cellar in New York City. With scraps of paper containing rough ideas for jokes, he warns the audience, it's not going to be that good. This isn't false modesty. It's a deliberate strategy to test new material in a controlled environment where he can get immediate, honest feedback. Rock's approach is remarkable because he's deliberately putting himself in a situation where he'll likely perform below his usual standards. He's not trying to protect his ego or reputation. He's hunting for information about what works and what doesn't. This willingness to take the punches of negative feedback allows him to rapidly improve his material before performing it on larger stages. Research confirms that feedback is crucial for developing expertise, but with an important caveat: not all feedback is equally valuable. In a meta-analysis of hundreds of studies, researchers found that while feedback generally improves performance, in 38% of cases it actually had a negative impact. The difference lies in how feedback is delivered and processed. Feedback that focuses on the task and provides specific information about how to improve is beneficial. Feedback directed at a person's ego or self-worth, you are so smart, or You are lazy typically harms learning. To maximize the value of feedback in your learning, understand the three main types and when each is most useful. Outcome feedback tells you whether you succeeded or failed but provides no details about why. Informational feedback identifies what you're doing wrong but doesn't tell you how to fix it. Corrective feedback, the most valuable kind, both identifies problems and suggests solutions. Implementing effective feedback strategies requires addressing several challenges. First, use noise cancellation techniques to separate meaningful signals from random variation in your performance. Second, adjust the difficulty of your practice to hit the sweet spot where feedback provides maximum information. Not so easy that you always succeed, not so difficult that you always fail. Third, gather meta-feedback about your learning rate to determine when to persist with a strategy and when to try something new. Perhaps the most powerful feedback approach is high-intensity, rapid feedback, deliberately placing yourself in situations where you receive frequent, immediate information about your performance. This approach has both informational advantages. You learn more quickly what works, and psychological benefits. You overcome the fear of feedback that holds many people back. While receiving feedback isn't always comfortable, the discomfort becomes easier to manage with practice. By embracing feedback early and often, you develop both better skills and greater resilience, accelerating your progress far beyond what will be possible through practice alone. Chapter 7. Build Lasting Knowledge. The Retention Framework. Learning something quickly is impressive, but if you forget it just as rapidly, the effort is largely wasted. Retention, the ability to maintain knowledge and skills over time, is the crucial counterpart to acquisition in the ultra-learning process. Nigel Richards, widely considered the greatest Scrabble player of all time, demonstrates the extraordinary power of effective retention strategies. In 2015, Richards accomplished something that seemed impossible. He won the French World Scrabble Championship despite not speaking French. With just 9 weeks of preparation, he memorized virtually the entire French Scrabble dictionary, nearly 386,000 valid word forms, and defeated native French speakers in competition. What makes Richards' feat even more remarkable is that he isn't just memorizing words temporarily. His retention is extraordinarily durable. His method, while not fully disclosed, involves intense study of word lists combined with mental rehearsal during long bicycle rides. The cycling helps, he explains. I can go through lists in my mind. This combination of focused study and active mental retrieval creates memories that persist for years. Understanding why forgetting occurs is the first step toward preventing it. Psychologists have identified 3 main mechanisms of forgetting: decay, memories naturally fading over time; interference, new memories overwriting old ones; and forgotten cues, the inability to access memories that still exist. Effective retention strategies address all 3 of these challenges. The first key mechanism for improving retention is spacing, spreading learning sessions over time rather than cramming. Research consistently shows that 10 one-hour sessions spaced over days or weeks produce far better long-term retention than a single 10-hour marathon. Many ultra-learners use spaced repetition systems, SRS, that algorithmically schedule reviews at optimal intervals to maximize retention with minimal time investment. The second mechanism is proceduralization, converting declarative knowledge, facts you consciously recall, into procedural knowledge, skills you perform automatically. Think about how you type on a keyboard. Initially, you consciously remember where each key is located, but with practice, the movements become automatic. Procedural knowledge is far more resistant to forgetting than declarative knowledge, which is why you can still ride a bicycle years later but might forget facts from a history class within weeks. The third mechanism is overlearning, continuing to practice beyond the point of initial mastery. Research shows that additional practice, even after you can perform a skill correctly, extends the durability of the memory. This is particularly valuable for core skills that serve as foundation for more advanced abilities. The fourth mechanism involves mnemonics, techniques that translate abstract information into vivid, memorable images or stories. The keyword method for learning foreign vocabulary, for instance, creates a mental image linking a foreign word to something it sounds like in your native language, dramatically improving retention. To build lasting knowledge, combine these mechanisms strategically. Use spacing to distribute practice optimally over time. Focus on proceduralizing core skills through extensive practice. Apply overlearning to the most critical components of your skill. And use mnemonics as bridges to help you retain difficult information during the early stages of learning. Remember that forgetting isn't entirely preventable, but with these strategies, you can dramatically slow its pace and ensure that your hard-won knowledge remains accessible when you need it. Thank you for listening audiobook by Mysterious Untold Books.